collaboration is to look at how we use StepUp resources as we enter second semester, this next chapter. And so just as a reminder, we are Missouri educators helping Missouri educators. So we're the how-to company for Missouri. And we are trying to help prevent learning loss for our students and retain our teachers by providing them with clarity and supporting Missouri educators as best that we can. So I am going to ask, who's in the room, who's in the Zoom, so to speak, if you could just give us where you're from and what brought you to the client collaboration today. If there's something on your mind, we'd certainly like to be able to chat about it before we move into the topic for the day. So who wants to unmute and begin?
I can go, Sue. My name is Sarah Rail, and I am a consultant and trainer for StepUp. And so I'm just here to kind of hear the great conversations and things that administrators have to say and instructional leaders with what's going on with second semester. So,
thank you.
I'm Jennifer Ranagrim from Republic, which is just right outside of Springfield. I'm the data and assessment specialist for the district, and I'm here just to listen and possibly gain some new ideas.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Amanda, welcome. We're just introducing ourselves.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. I'm Amanda Sheets, and I am the Director of Assessment at the Farmington School District in Farmington, Missouri.
Wonderful. 2 assessment people on the call. That's great. And last but not least, Jessica.
Hey there. My name's Jessica Gray, and I'm the lead literacy consultant at StepUp. A lot of you may know me as the RSP guru. I kind of run some of our RSP tool products and try and keep people updated on that in our RSP cohorts. But I'm just here to, like Sarah said, listen and learn and see what we can take back to our districts to help us in that second semester.
And we'll keep letting people enter the Zoom as we go, but we're going to move forward. Real quickly, I am Sue Herrera. I'm the Director of Instructional Development and a consultant. I'm a retired principal of 11 years and was an instructional coach and have been in rural, urban, and suburban districts and have been with StepUp. This is my 2nd year and have enjoyed traveling through Missouri, getting to know Missouri educators, and have been with Shauna from the beginning as a writer. So happy to be here today with you. I'll let one more person in. So I'm going to focus today on how you can use the student scales provided by StepUp and how might you use the mats for writing. And it's interesting that I have 2 assessment people on because my focus in choosing this is when I've worked with districts this time of the year and as a principal this time of the year, we kind of start tiptoeing into, are we ready for the state assessment? Have students been given everything they need to be successful? And that's my focus today, is to kind of show you how can the tools that we already have maybe be used in a different way, especially with our students that are going to be tested in the spring. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No, you are absolutely fine. Can you just tell us where you're from?
Canton, R5.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you. This is going to be our focus today. Just know that if you have a question or a comment, throw it in the chat, and Jessica's going to watch the chat and let us know, or you can unmute. We're a small group. If you've got things you want to comment on, please feel free to do that. That is the purpose of the call today, is to collaborate. So I'm going to jump into our student scales. And before I start talking to you about, the power of these, let's talk about where you can find these. If you have the curriculum management tool, they are on the pink side. They are hyperlinked in the scope and sequence. You can also find them if you have the materials digitally, because it's our student tool. If you have the map books, they are not in the map books, but you certainly can create student scales from the map book. So I'm going to show you what we have available. This would be a 6th grade Cartesian coordinate plane, and I'm going to pretend I even know what that means. But this would be the proficiency scale that you could use with a student. So these are student facing. And so this is the target right here, proficient. We want them to be able to create a table of equivalent ratios, find missing values in tables, and plot the pairs of values from a table on the Cartesian coordinate plane. Simple language, and we're giving it to students. This is your target. This would be where we differentiate. This is the basic. And so I look at this as a checklist of if students are not performing here, where here are they missing? What skill set or process are they missing that I could provide a mini lesson on, a small group session, personalized homework assignment, pull out, whatever it is I need to do to get them where we move up these processes so I can get them to proficient. So the question is, other than the way I've presented it, how else might you use these student scales? Because we have student scales, hundreds of them, one for every priority standard. So how might we use these? And you can put it in the chat or unmute and just share. Excited to see what you think.
Well, I blocked myself so no one can see because I'm still in my pajamas at home. We're having another snow day, so that's why. Um, so one of the ways that we have tried, now we are not perfect at this, and we have a long ways to go, but we try to have some student ownership with these proficiency scales. And so one way that we've really used them is with as a goal setting tool. So when teachers are, they are communicating their learning target, discussing the learning target with students, students are then able to kind of look at that scale and determine where they're at and where they need to be. And we do this a lot at middle school level, but then we are standards-based grading K through 4. So this is kind of really helpful in that instance too.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
I think Amanda hit it right on. When you can get it in the hands of students and the students are actually using these, I think that's when we really see students understanding what the goals are and what the targets are and where we need to go next. So I think that's great that you're using those scales in those ways.
I have also heard educators say they've printed them off, whichever scales apply to an assessment, and they will use that as a way to discuss things with parents to make it a little clearer for parents. I thought that was a great idea. I've also had my special education teachers I've worked with say that this is a great tool for paras. So even if you have a child that is not performing at the 6th grade level, they're performing at the 3rd grade level, you can still pull that student scale at 3rd grade and talk about which skills we're still missing to get to the proficiency level. So it makes it clearer for, the team, everyone that's working together. Let me show you another scale. This is a 5th grade research process scale. And lots of times when we're looking at something like research, educators are thinking this is part of science or social studies, but really, this is a huge part of the writing standards. And so, I want you to know that a lot of your writing points on the state assessment come from things other than the performance events. So even if we're talking 4th grade and 7th grade where they have the performance event, that's only 4 points, 4, 3, 2, or 1. Most of your writing points are going to come from the research process. Can they think like a writer? And from revision. And how do they organize their thoughts? And so let's look at this student scale. To be proficient, they have to follow a research process. So do kids even know a research process? Do they know what the steps are? Decide which information is relevant to answer questions, like in this document I'm looking at or the website I've Googled, is there anything in here that's relevant? Differentiate between paraphrasing and plagiarism. Huge, huge. So if they can't do this, we go down here and we start right here. Can they sort their notes into categories or organizers? This is where I would start. If kids do not have a background in research, I would start here, showing them how to categorize, showing them how to take notes and put it on an organizer underneath a heading, taking simple notes, determine accuracy of information, decide which source might be relevant. So you're giving them different sources. In the actual map book, we're going to look at some things that will help us too, but it is really, this is a stair-step approach for students when it comes to the student scale. So it's kind of like their own little vertical progression that they're looking at. If I can do all these things, I can get here. And if I can do this, then I can perform much like a sixth grader, because this is fifth grade. Thoughts or questions about this? Hoping that makes sense. I know that I spent some time with the district in January last year, and we went through and we looked at all of student scales that dealt with writing, and we're very surprised at how robust they were. And so that leads me away from student scales into how would we use the MATs to help students think like an author? Because it's more than children being able to produce a piece of writing. We really want them to be analytical, and that's the majority of the questions that they're going to see. So I'm going to take us to some digital links that we can access very quickly. This is fifth grade again. We're just going to live in fifth grade for this call, and I'm going to go down to writing, and I am going to pull up this first teacher tool. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And let's scroll down. So we are in the 3, use a pre-writing strategy to plan a first draft. Remember, that's your proficiency target. And here's which graphic organizer would be best for this genre. We got to ask questions like that. If we're writing something to persuade or we're writing to inform, does the graphic organizer guide us through that? And then here's a map released question. I would start using these now. I love this question because it's a perfect example of why the writing is so hard. A student wants to persuade the principal to give fifth grade students computers to improve student learning. The student is using this chart to organize her notes. And the title is Reasons Why Fifth Grade Students Should Have Computers. Which 3 notes will best help the student complete the letter? I don't know about you, but that kind of feels like a reading question in many ways. If we're not adept at reading, it's hard for us to be an analytical writer. So I'm just encouraging people to go back and look at their writing mats and the proficiency scales to see what is it that students are being asked to do. You know, we looked at that research student scale. Let's go down and look at a research proficiency scale. We looked at the student scale. Let's see what it says for teachers here. See if we're on track with the way we're helping students think like a researcher. So look at all these questions. A student is writing a research report on habitats of a polar bear. Which is the best resource to use for researching the topic? A student copied the following statements about blank from a variety of sources. Is this paraphrasing or plagiarism? So as a teacher, I'm knowing I got to provide that sort of practice. And then we've got the something from a Mo block on forest conservation released. Which statement best paraphrases the paragraph without plagiarizing? So many big words in here. I mean, we just want to make sure we can understand the question being asked, right? Lots of big words. They got to be able to paraphrase, they got to know paragraphing, and then it got to know plagiarizing in order to be able to comprehend the piece they've been given and figure out which one of these best describes paraphrasing. Kids are going to need lots of practice on that sort of thing. And the DOK level is high. This is rigorous. Adults are going to have to read carefully to figure this one out. So this practice has been captured for StepUp clients. It's all right there in the math book. And as I know this time of year takes us to this line of thinking, we just want to make sure that we're using our Step Up resources to the fullest potential. Let me go back to our presentation and just say, can you throw something in the chat, a thought in the chat, or unmute and just tell me what your thoughts are as far as how you might be able to use this information for your teachers or even students. And consultants on the call, please feel free to chime in.
I've worked more with some of our teachers and some of our teams than with others, so I don't know exactly all of the ways that people are using the mat tools, but what the other folks have shared, we're doing very much the same thing. We are a Leader in Me district, so lots of student agency, lots of students setting their own goals, monitoring their own goals. But I've also started talking to teachers about, just because we have common assessments doesn't mean that that is the only way that you measure, what a student knows. And so I've talked to them about different ways of using the MAT tools to just paper, pencil, old school, keep track of where their students are. Because the samples that are, lined up right next to each of the different levels have given them multiple ways that they can work with the students one-on-one or in small groups and do their own tracking outside of, the common assessments. And so that's gaining a lot of traction. And I worked with some teachers that have said that it's very, very predictive of what they're going to do on the common assessments. So that has been a game changer for a lot of our folks.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else?
We have started our vertical teams going through trying to get some more vertical alignment with our curriculum. And so our next vertical math is next week. And so just thinking about using these a little more deeply in that vertical teaming to really look at the progressions. It's been eye-opening with teachers once they look at standards and really unwrap them further. And that these help us get a true picture of that to start thinking, oh, that's not really what I thought it was, or that's not how I should be teaching it necessarily, or I could do it this way. So that's been pretty eye-opening. So I want to further use some of this next week when we continue our vertical work.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Consultants, do you have anything you want to add?
I'll add something, Sue. I really like taking, if you have teachers who are really concerned about time and stressed with that, one thing that worked really well in the district I just came out of was we had teachers choose several from units coming up, and especially with these writing, and we would take those test prep questions from the map or from the mats and show them as morning work, or they would just have a quick bell ringer, like anything like that, to just start exposing the kids where you're not feeling test prep heavy, but you're getting them introduced to that language. And I think that's a really big barrier for our students, is how many times are we like, we've taught that skill, but we didn't ask it that way, or it wasn't worded maybe quite like that. And I wish I would have shown them this. And I think that's what the maths can help do, is getting us ready and in that mind frame of how it's going to be assessed. When you're talking about writing, especially in our 6-12, a lot of times we're having kids write across content areas, but we aren't having the same expectations across those content areas. And that can be really difficult for students. And I like pulling up this research one, especially like everybody in your building should be using that research map for that grade level. And these are our expectations of writing across the board. So even though you're teaching social studies, we should still be pulling that writing map and utilizing that writing mat and having that calibration between ELA and social studies. We should all be doing the same, because a lot of times we confuse kids too on expectations because we're asking them different things, or maybe we're wording things differently. We talk a lot about vocab in our mat tools and in our vertical alignments, but Just making sure you're calibrated as a building on what are we using for writing, what are we looking at. And I think the mat tools can really help with that, especially for teachers who don't feel like they're writing teachers. And now we're all kind of on the same page.
Thank you. You sparked a memory in me. You know, I'm old as Methuselah, so I've been around a very long time. And one of the best experiences I had as a teacher was in a district where our library media specialist guided a research project every quarter with every grade level. And as I grew in my leadership and became a principal, we implemented that, because what we know about research is not only does it go into science and social studies, so it hits those standards as well, but it hits your reading standards, and it incorporates many of the highest yield instructional strategies that Hattie and Marzano say we should be using. So summarizing and note taking, right? Huge. So if we can get kids, rather than test prep, if the best test prep is authentic learning. If we were to say to kids, hey, we're going to research blank for science or social studies because we need to hit those standards, and we're going to use the research process organically through that, you slay like 7 or 8 priority standards while incorporating high yield instructional strategies. So shifting back to the why of the research standards, I think is really important for districts. I have noticed when you do a lot of integrated learning, or you do a thematic that is led by research, my experience as a principal was that my attendance went up and my discipline infractions went down, and kids were very, very excited. So just something to think about. Jessica, you just reminded me of that, something to think about. Anything else before I go back and review something that I want to make sure that I stated? Now, can Sue go back is the question. Yes, I can. We were in a district recently where just a really innovative educator shared a strategy with us that I want to share with you on this call. You know, AI is really knocking on our doors, educators. And they had seen the student scales for the very first time that day. And he took a student scale for what he was getting ready to teach, dumped it in an AI engine called Brisk, B-R-I-S-K, and it shot out a whole lesson plan and unit for him. It is it's one of those AI tools that is going to ask you to add a Google Chrome extension or something like that. He said, don't be afraid of that. Just do what it asks you to do, because it's well worth it and it saves teachers lots of time. So if you don't have a robust resource that you're using, or anything that you're requiring teachers to use with fidelity, using this AI engine has proven to be a game changer in the district where I came from. So just wanted to share that with you. AI loves the student scales. Let me just say that. It's easy to read, gives them lots of information. Okay, upcoming events that we have. On January 28th, we are going to talk about what is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And if you're a StepUp client, I'm sure you've heard that phrase many, many times. And then on January 30th, I am partnering with the principal from Lamont. I'm going to butcher her last name. Amber, help me, Jess.
It's commercial. I'm pretty
Commercial.
sure. I've been practicing, but
Amber
I think that you
Commercial.
pronounce it commercial.
And we're going to look at this data visualization tool that Desi has put out. She has done the work to log in and start looking at things, because we've got to be able to access our data more easily, more efficiently, and have that data work to our advantage. And so we want to unpack that for educators. Before we say goodbye today, is there any question or discussion that someone on the call wanted to have that maybe we didn't address today that we could do real quickly for you? Okay. Well, we always end with clarity. You know, it's all about clarity of standards for students and teachers, but especially our teachers, because we know that if there's teacher clarity in both methodology and mindset, the effect size is huge, according to Hattie's research. And so we are about bringing clarity to our educators. If there's no final thoughts before we end the call, I am going to say goodbye and thank you so much for being on the call today. Have a great rest of your week, friends.